If you're an entrepreneur and your business is not yet registered, if you're looking to grow your registered business, or you're an accomplished professional. Our Ellevate program supports you with access to finance, access to markets, access to capacity building. Sign up now or refer a friend at ecobank.com/elevate. Ellevate by Ecobank. A better way, a better Africa.
A better way to pay your UTG fees with instant proof of payment and real-time student portal update. Paying your University of the Gambia fees has never been easier or more convenient. With Ecobank, students, parents and guardians can pay UTG tuition and related fees through our secure digital banking channels such as Ecobank mobile app, Ecobank online and Ecobank Omni Lite. Once payment is completed, instant proof of payment is generated and the UTG student portal is updated in real time, allowing students to proceed immediately with registration, course selection, and clearance without unnecessary delays, while giving parents and guardians peace of mind that payments have been successfully processed. How to pay via the Ecobank mobile app. Open the Ecobank mobile app and navigate to the home screen. Select Pay Bill. Choose Pay a New Bill and select Schools from the category options. Select University of the Gambia. Select the specific product you are paying for. Enter your matriculation number and tap Continue. Validate your details. The system will display the payable amount. Press Continue to confirm the payment. An e-receipt is generated automatically as proof of payment with real-time updates on the student portal. How to pay via Ecobank online or Omni Lite. Log in to Ecobank online and Omni Lite using your credentials. Select the menu and choose Bill Payments. Choose Quick Bill Pay and select School from the category options. Select University of the Gambia. Select the specific product you are paying for. Enter your matriculation number and tap Continue. Validate your details. The system will display the payable amount. Press Continue to confirm the payment. An e-receipt is generated automatically as proof of payment with real-time updates on the student portal. Walk into any Ecobank branch or pay through our digital channels and enjoy instant proof of payment with real-time updates on the student portal. Ecobank, the Pan-African Bank.
Jah Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jah Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
Santa Yala.
Nekar, utul wave, nga scan, nga fay, nak doo ci yokku dara.
It's Tuesday, the 7th of July, 2026, and you're with Coffee Time with Peter Gomez, coming to you live on FM across the Gambia on 92.1, and globally you'll find us at www.wcr.gm. Thanks for joining us. 11 minutes past 9 o'clock in the morning is our time. With us in the studio now is Kemo Bojang, spokesperson for the newly registered Unite Party. Fresh from the party's successful IEC recognition, Bojang represents a rising generation of voices seeking to reshape Gambian politics. He joins us to discuss what Unite's entry means for its members, for the nation, and for the ongoing coalition talks, as well as the party's perspective on pressing domestic issues, from security to the economy. Kemo, good to have you back.
It's a pleasure to be here once more, Uncle Peter, and I'd just like to say thank you once more for giving me the opportunity to come and discuss with Gambian people.
What was the day like for Unite members like yourselves when the IEC finally gave you that certificate that you could flash around the world to say, well, listen, we are now officially recognized as a political force in this country?
First of all, I wasn't in town. I was away.
Oh, you were?
Yes.
You chose a bad time to be away.
I know, but then what that shows is that United is an institution, because I was away, Talib was away, and other...
Both of you were away?
Yeah, but it showed that the institution continued to function. And I think the mood within the camp is evident in when our elder brother Dembo Kante held the certificate, and you could see his big smile. Mm-hmm. That was a defining moment for us in Paul. And I think it's a shift that people haven't noticed yet in Gambia's politics, but the day will be marked in history. And it was a grand opening for us, and people actually felt, okay, these guys are now serious. For us as a party, it also signifies that legitimacy and credibility that we have always been, asking for. Because during our first few months, you'd go around town, you would talk to people, and they'll say, yeah, but well, you aren't registered yet. And that was a contentious position that really we thought should have been something that was taken care of. But one thing it also showed was that our determination. That everybody who asked me, or whenever I was in the media and people, said, yeah, but what about your registration? I'll say we will be registered and United will be on the ballot. And I am happy that I've been vindicated, or we have been vindicated. Mm-hmm.
So what's the significance, the meaning of registration to your party?
Yeah, it means legitimacy, it means credibility, it means preparedness, and it means now we're officially a political party.
Okay, all right. As I said in the introduction, United is seen as a voice for young people. How will the party translate that energy into real policies that address some of the issues that we all face as a nation, but more so young people, jobs, education, and other opportunities?
So generally, like you have said, what has been our biggest strength is the demography that we have been able to attract. I have had countless interviews where people have asked, where is your base? And I've said that our base is not a geography, but our base is a demography. And I think this is how Gambians need to start seeing politics, that you need to attract a certain section of society. But if you're attracting that section, you cannot just base it on a geography. Because generally we believe that the base of United is the Gambian people. Now within that population, young people majority have taken ownership of this party. Now, what we are doing is that we have seen numbers that have been presented by the Independent Electoral Commission. For example, new voters alone make up almost 200,000 people. And these are voters between the ages of 21 to 18. Now, that is a big chunk that we have been able to attract. Secondly, generally, like I've continued to say, majority of Gambians are not card-carrying members of political parties. So in a country where you have almost 70% of that population being under the age of 35, what that does is it gives us an opportunity as United. And this is an opportunity that we are taking. We're looking at issues that are very, that relate to this demography. For example, you talk about migration, you talk about agriculture, you talk about education, you talk about employment, you talk about sovereign security, you talk about food security. These are issues that really matter to the Gambian people. Now, generally, if they matter to a section of society, like I said, the young people, these are cross-cutting issues that also affect everybody. Now, United is focused on building a manifesto that reflects these issues and how are we going to solve them. Now, when people ask us, why hasn't your manifesto come out yet? You would remember that when we started, we said the manifesto will be a people's document. And this document will reflect the wishes and aspirations of the Gambian people. We have taken time, we have run surveys, we have gone to the communities, because even our competitors a few months ago were saying, yeah, they saw Unite members within their communities asking questions. That was the process we were doing in building our survey. Because politics in Gambia, or generally what political parties have done, is that we have sat in rooms and we have built documents and presented it to the Gambian people. Unite is saying that we do not want to do that. We want to go back to you and we want to ask you, what do you want your government to do for you? Then people take ownership, then people believe that they have a part to play, and they believe that they are part of the process. Now, we have also received position papers from Gambians, Gambian professionals, Gambians in the diaspora, and people who have also volunteered to be part of committees. in basic different issues that we want to focus on. And we've built this document, and inshallah, in a few weeks, we will do a launching. When we launch this document, the Gambian people will have a say in it. But we have also tried to, put our context into how we have built Unite. For example, when you look at our logo and our symbols, the symbol of the party are two hands holding kola nuts. Now, this represents Bunya, or when you say Taranga. So the Taranga we talk about here is that Unite being the party holding the Gambia together, and each of these kola nuts represents an ethnic group or a section of society. Yes. So even when it comes to our manifesto also, we've put it on 3 positions, and that also in Mandinka represents Sinkre Beresabu, meaning that when you're cooking, a cooking pot has 3 pillars, because that, make sure that the load, the fulcrum, and the lever are held together very strongly. And these are the same positions that we have also held. One is human development, because Gambia doesn't have, our mineral resources are limited. Apart from the river, we're looking at the people that we have are people that we need to improve on. So improving the human capital is one of them, and our human resource. Economic integrity is another thing, and also governance is also another position. These are the 3 pillars that we're looking at, and under these pillars you have the different sections that we want to address. But for example, like I said, migration is one of them. Food security is another, education is another, healthcare is another, and many other sectors that we want to address.
Often what I hear some of my listeners say is you allow politicians to come and tell you, well, this is what we want to do when we get into office, but they don't tell you how they intend, to tackle them. So beyond political reform, what is Unite's plan for tackling everyday struggles like the rising cost of living, you referenced it, unemployment and public services?
So, for example, the rising cost of living, which we have all echoed, believing that it would solve half of the problems we have. Because even when you look at even healthcare, I believe we're challenged health-wise because of what we are consuming. What you put in you is what affects you, right? So if, for example, you're putting in things into your system that are toxins, there's a high tendency it will find a way of, the body works in that way. It will try to expunge them. So in doing those expansions are how we get sick most of the time. So when you talk about the rise in cost of living, it's because we import almost 80% of everything consumed in this country. Now, I see no reason why Gambia cannot be food self-sufficient. It's not going to happen overnight, but with a realistic 10-year development plan, for example, I see no reason why CRR, for example, cannot be the breadbasket of this country. Because from CRR going all the way upriver, it's fresh water. How can't we build irrigation systems, build a credible credit union, empower young people to farm rice, to farm sorghum, to farm coos, to farm the staples we consume in this country? Have government work with industries who come in this country, and when we say open markets, I see no reason why we cannot open our markets and have investors come in this country. Granted, we want to guard our security and our integrity as a country, but these are based on the laws that are put in place. And for example, you look at the countries around us and how they're developing is because they have been able to attract, foreign investment.
The problem in the Gambia is it's not that investors are not coming in. The problem seems to be that the investors who come in with very little and leave with a whole lot.
Because we have not been able to market Gambia. I remember during my fellowship at the University of Davis, California, when we were asked to introduce each other. So I got up and I said, I come from a country that's 2.5 million people at the time. I said, I come from the smallest country in mainland Africa, with a land area of 11,295 kilometers square, but with a population of 30 million. And
30?
Yes. And everybody looked at me in the room, and someone got his phone and said, no, but your country, it says you are 2.5 million. I said, yes. But the proximity of the Gambia, how geographically located we are. Gambia, for example, Banjul is closer to Ziguinchor than Dakar is. You look at Basse is closer to Bamako than Dakar is. You look at Gambia's position. When you look at Guinea, you look at... So and our biggest advantage is that we are an English-speaking country. because English is seen as the widest spoken country in the world. We have a very because we are not very bureaucratic. That gives an opportunity to investors to come, because the process isn't going to take too long to position themselves. Gambia is a market, or is an open door to the sub-region. But we have not been able to sell our country to make investors understand that if you invest in Gambia, you are not investing in a market of 2.5 million to 3 million people. You are investing in a market of the whole sub-region. Because Gambia can be the gateway to West Africa, and we should be the gateway to West Africa. In fact, that is why the British settled for the Gambia and its small land area, because the river was the gateway to West Africa, or the interland of the continent. Why cannot we as a country sell Gambia as an investment, or even a re-exporting position? Because you look at Mali is a landlocked country, but today Malians are not using our port, they're using the Senegalese port. Why? Because it is easier and faster to get your goods away. But when you look at what they are spending in transporting goods from Dakar to Bamako, imagine if we had a dry port in Basse, for example. And then even when you talk about fuel, imagine if we had bunkers in Basse that stored fuel and could transport around the sub-region. So these are areas I think we need to look into that would make investment easier for the Gambia. So back to the answer of rising cost of living. CRR, for example, if we as a country invest $100 million, for example, get young people who are ready to get back to, because it's one thing to tell people there's money and come do it, and look at people that have passion for it and are already into it, and support and empower them. You look at when we say it's time for Tobaski, and how the increment of cattle becomes. Just this last Tobaski was difficult for us to get rams, because Mali had security issues. Rams didn't come in. This is the best time to get rams and bring them into the country, fatten them, have a small ruminant project, empower young farmers, get them ready for next Tobaski. But we are not doing that.
But the cost would come around the same thing again, because feeding for the next 1 year.
We have pasture, Uncle Peter. You have the River Gambia. Irrigate. Get pasture. Because before you had all of these, genetically modified feed for cattle, we were using pasture. Why can't we go back to organic farming? So these are areas. It's not rocket science. Even I, as who is not an expert in agriculture, knows basic things like this, because we have ruminants at home. We have small gardens that way, because even I have a business called Urban Farmers Gambia. That is an agribusiness. So these are basic things that I would expect the government understands and knows, but unfortunately they are not doing that.
From your conversation so far, it seems as if the agriculture sector is getting a great deal of attention in Unite. What about job creation, opportunities for young people?
Because we feel that when you tackle agriculture, for example, you are creating jobs for young people, and you're also creating feeding. You're also tackling half of the health issues we are facing in this country. For example, I was reading a document by a young Gambian doctor that spoke about even, most of the issues fertility issues our women are having is based on the food that we are consuming today.
Oh, is that so?
Yes. There's a report
cause for concern.
Yes. There's this thing called is it PCOS or something like that? I've forgotten the term. But he was discussing about how the starch in our food affects, because these products are farmed months in advance. They are stored, and there's something that is put there to make sure that they get to us, fresh in a context. Yeah. And it affects us in different ways. I believe if we are able to tackle agriculture and be food self-sufficient, we are tackling almost 50% of our problems in healthcare, in food, in food security, even sovereign security. Because a lot of these issues we're having today with security, I believe, stems from poverty. This is not an excuse for anyone, but I believe that if we're able to tackle the issue of poverty and provide opportunities for our young people, even migration will not become a big phenomenon. Gambia is number 2 when it comes to migration per capita after Nigeria. But look at Nigeria's population and look at Gambia's population. It tells you where the problem really lies. Young people have lost faith. Young people have lost the will. And I've always said, for someone to see Barzak in our Islamic terminology and see Barcelona and say, I rather go Barzak, I think that tells you, all you need to know about where we are as a country today.
Well, this is your main demographic. If you were to try to change minds about migration, where would you start?
First of all, is making sure that we do not delegitimize migration. I think migration is a global phenomenon, and it's a human phenomenon. People were migrants, nomadic in nature before
Prophets were migrants.
Exactly, before we became static. But also providing an opportunity to understand that the Gambia can also become what we are migrating to. Like Mandinkas would say, Hamole Kamol Samba. So it's out of ambition and hope is why young people are leaving. So unless they begin to see hope in the country and believe that there's a government that listens to them and there's a government here that will be able to answer their problems, they'll continue going. Because it's not about the opportunities. The opportunities are one thing, but people say, okay, we have created opportunities for young people, but how sustainable have these opportunities been? It's one thing to say that I've trained 3,000 young people, in entrepreneurship, giving them grants, seed funding. But you go back 1 year later, how many people out of those 3,000 people are still in business? It's something that we need to be. So projects that come in this country are more focused on the numbers rather than the impact, and I think these are things that we need to change. And we at Unite are saying that these are issues that we need to focus on. Expand on also, our skill development. Today, you and I are able to communicate because someone has a skill to create a microphone. Gambians are very talented people. When we go out of this country, I was watching Justice Sekou Barrow the other day say that Gambians excel in other environments, and why don't we excel in the Gambia? Those are issues that we need to have solutions to. Why is it that when Gambians go out of the Gambia or out of our comfort zone, we are able to do well and not here? Is it that there needs to be that push factor that pushes us to do better? Is it that we need to create an identity that reflects the Gambian people? Is it that we need to show Gambians that there's nothing wrong in being confident in yourself, even in your setting? And these are things that I think we at Unite are focused on doing, building a Gambian identity that reflects the basic needs and necessities of the Gambian people. Like our party leader has said, even during his tour in America, he said, what is the Gambian identity and what does it mean to be Gambian? In this room, when I ask everybody, you will give me something different. So to have a common identity is very important, because once you have an identity, you have purpose. And purpose is what drives nations. Today we talk about Singapore, but Lee Kuan Yew, for example, was able to build a common identity for Singapore. He was able to be the father of modern Singapore because he took stands that at the time people saw drastic, but today have paid off. You talk about China. China has built the Chinese communism with Chinese characteristics, for example, under Chairman Mao. These are issues that we need to look at as a country. For example, you look at Nyerere and his Ujamaa. Granted, it wasn't sustainable, but in the first 4 years that it came out, his country was food self-sufficient. You look at what Sankara was able to do with Burkina Faso. Even with the Renaissance, for example, with Senghor. Today, when you talk about Senegal and you look at the culture and you look at how they have been able to preserve it, it's identity. But Senghor was able to do that with or through the Renaissance. And this is what Gambia needs to also come up with. Even our parties, for example, when you ask us, what is your ideology or what is your identity, it becomes, a big conversation that cannot be answered. And these are issues that we need to look at. For example, we in our manifesto talk about how do we harness our River Gambia. How do we make sure that our resources are serving the people? How do we make sure that the Gambian human capital is improved and is here and used as a workforce, to develop the country? These are nationalistic positions that you're looking at. You look at our relations and how we want to work with the sub-region, for example. You look at how we want to work, with countries, that are neighboring to us. These are Pan-Africanist positions. So political parties must be able to also define what their identity is, and this is what they want to bring in when they get into government. So this is why when I see NPP saying that they've launched a manifesto, I'm like, yeah, but you've been in power for 9 years. I think the NDP you developed during your time should be your manifesto. should be the working document you're going to present to the Gambian people and say, in 2016 we said we were going to do this, we have achieved this. Now vote for us to continue, even though I think it makes no sense that the president is asking for another term. But it tells you how it's easy to bamboozle us also. Somebody that has promised you something for the first 5 years, he didn't accomplish it. He came over and said Yiriwa 2.0 and has not been able to accomplish anything from it. And now he's telling you that, you know what, I have a new manifesto for 2026. Why don't we assess, why don't we examine the 2 plans that they gave us earlier and said they will be able to do so and so, and have they been able to do it? I think that is how we need to assess governance, and I think that is how we need to assess political parties.
They shouldn't have come out with a manifesto.
It makes no sense, because they already have a national development plan which was developed during their time. So it's either the national development plan failed and now they're trying to use it as a cover-up, or they do not even understand the position of the national development plan.
Which one do you say, holds true, that they did not completely implement it, or they did not understand it?
From the onset, they didn't understand what they were doing, and now that it has failed, they want to come up with something else.
How can they not understand something they developed?
Yeah, well,
unless you're talking about cut and paste. Unite is taking part in ongoing opposition coalition talks. Mm-hmm. Where does the party stand? Are you open to joining forces, or now that you've got your official recognition, you prefer to go it alone eventually?
We have always said Unite will be the next government or be part of the next government. That answers the question, that we are willing, if push gets to shove, we do not mind going alone, but we also believe in listening to the Gambian people, and cries have been made that the Gambian opposition unites, and our name presents itself. Unite, and we are open to working with other opposition parties, and we have shown our commitment from the onset, from different talks. We have taken part in almost 3 different talks.
Exactly. I was going to say, there are so many efforts out there. I mean, is it not confusing?
We have asked all of them to put their eggs in one basket, and we're glad that now that is happening.
So you play along, you join whatever, effort comes up, but at the end of the day, you will make your own decisions.
We've told everyone that we are not giving exclusivity to anybody, and that as a spokesperson, I was tasked to communicate that to all platforms that we are part of, and I have done that effectively. And we have also held the position since the first day we attended every talk to tell them that we are asking them to unite and bring their opinions together and make it one platform. And that has been going on for the last 3-4 weeks, where we have seen ADD and or the CMC now talking to Apex, and I think is great. And PAC also is in discussion with CMC. So we are glad that now discussions have taken place, and they are trying to see how best they could merge their ideas together. And surveys have been held in this country, and this is what I've always said, is it that we want to, if it is indeed that we are listening to the Gambian people, then Gambian people have said that they want a coalition. Now, the formalities of that coalition and how it is going to happen is what we're discussing as parties and as members of the opposition. But in the end, we believe that it must be taken back to the Gambian people, in the sense that we believe that even when it comes to electing a candidate, we believe the wishes and aspirations of the people needs to be captured. That being the case, we hold a position that a survey will be best to determine who will be a candidate for the coalition. Because the scars of 2016 are still very fresh, and even that primary and that convention that was held, I believe, was one of the main factors that brought mistrust amongst the political parties that were part of Coalition 2016. Because
for those who can't remember that far back, what happened?
Different parties came up, and by then the UDP had come up with a position of a party-led coalition, like they have put forward this time around, and other parties had come up to say that a primary should be held. Now, when compromise was reached and a primary was held, during the primary, we saw that other parties supported, the UDP-led candidate. Mm-hmm. And I believe that from there, mistrust began to emanate. But I've always said that we are building a coalition not for us as political parties, even though political parties are part of the greater Gambia, but we are building a coalition for the Gambian people. because in the end, we are going back to these people to vote for the candidate that we put forward. And if the Gambian people say they want a candidate or they want a coalition, I believe we need to go back to them and ask them, who do you want to lead this coalition? Now, how do we do that? Someone might ask. We have had credible institutions in this country like CEPRAS, who have held surveys that have come out to be right point after point after point since 2018. I believe the coalition could engage institutions like CEPRAS to tell them that, we want you to run a survey for us. These are the candidates that we have. We give you a 1-month window, go around the country, ask them who do they think should lead this coalition. Once that comes back, granted, that can be 50% of, the qualification criteria. The other 50% can be based on eligibility criteria that the coalition comes up with. Once you have this, the people feel they are part of the process and they've made their voices heard. Because when you talk about primaries, delegates come in. These delegates are not necessarily representing the voices of the people. They are representing the voice of their political parties.
Oh, okay.
Because I believe in 2018, if everything remained, in 2016, if we were looking for capability and credibility and everything, there was no way someone like Khalifa Saleh could have lost to President Barrow. All respect due to President Barrow. But, he wasn't known at the time. There was no, compared to other, even Dr. Bojang of the NCP. So these are issues that I think we should look at to correct so that we have a seamless system that represents the wishes of the people.
Okay. Well, that's a very interesting proposition, and I hope CMC is listening. And,
I have professed this over and over at the meetings.
Okay.
And
okay.
Yeah. So
maybe this is one of the outstanding issues, because I had the spokesperson on the program yesterday, and he said they have asked for another 3 weeks, to complete the job. Maybe this is one of those outstanding issues they're working on.
Yeah, and coalition building is all about compromise, Uncle Peter. And I believe a lot of where we started and where we are today, I believe there's been a lot of compromise. And you cannot build anything with a non-compromising position, especially when you're trying to build with other people. And we have always been open to that and saying that we do understand that there's no monopoly when it comes to politics, and we respect and see everybody as equals. Be it a movement, be it a party, be it a civil society position, we believe that everybody must have a say in the process that we're building. And this is why even during the last meeting, I told, or the meeting before that we cannot have a closed position. Because let's say today a women's group with over 15,000 women nationally comes and says that we want to be part of this coalition discussion. I believe they need to have a say in it, because they have a constituents, they have people that listen to them, and they represent a section of society. And if we say we are building a grand coalition, then indeed it is natural that they are part of it. But history also teaches us that we have never had a two-legged race in this country. I think it's important that people also understand that. It's difficult to bring everybody together. So if there's one or two that stands outside, we need to understand and respect their position.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, I have always pushed for that and said that it's okay that not everybody will come to the table, and it doesn't mean they are unpatriotic. It just means that they feel different and they want and they hold a different position.